So for today's video, I'm going to be making this bed, and I ended up with a whole lot of issues with my GoPro and video editing software. So you'll have a lot more plainage footage going on here because I lost a ton of the footage of all the other pieces. So bear with me. It's not my favorite video as far as the end result of the video, but I do like the bed, so I decided to go ahead and post this video anyway. So anyway, bear with me and feel free to mute it because I do think I'm going to sound a little bit frustrated and down as I'm recording the audio here. So anyway, I got all of this framing lumber from one of the big box stores and planed it down so the edges would glue up more smoothly and snugly once I got it all put together for the pieces that needed to be glued together. So after planing, I cut them down, and see, I even dropped my GoPro, so that might be part of the problem. And then here, cut them down so each of the feet for the footboard, there's going to be 3 pieces on each side, and then for the headboard, 3 pieces glued up. And I was able to recruit plenty of help this time, so you can see lots of glue was used to make sure these are going to be glued together quite well. So no screws at all. I didn't do anything to attach them other than recruit somebody to help me glue them up. So once the missus has them all glued up, we clamped them together, and I did pretty much use any and all clamp that I had for this entire project. So these are very solid legs, and there's plenty of weight to this thing when it's all said and done. So I did not keep the legs at the exact length here. I intentionally cut them long because I knew I'd have some shifting once I got them glued up. So they were more than 36 inches, so that way when I got finished I could trim it up here and make them right at the 3 feet high that I wanted. So they're glued up and we're looking pretty good, and I lost my cameraman. He took off in the kitchen with Mom, and this is, so I lose all my bed footage, but I get video of her dancing and this new cameraman about to show himself. So anyway, a little comic relief for my frustration, which is great. That's why I left it. So we did pocket hole screws and glue on the bed rails. So you'll be able to tell what these are later, but this is just 2 2x6s that are a little bit offset. So there was glue on the layers, and after I put those 2 together, this is a 2x4, which is where all the slats go to hold the mattress, and this is what's actually holding all the weight of whoever's laying in the bed. So you want to make sure that it's glued up, and on those rails to hold the slats, we used more pocket hole screws than we did on the other pieces. So it is a lot stronger than you would think it is, but we didn't want to take any chances. So, and framing lumber, if you've ever worked with it, is certainly not known for being straight. So I would suggest using some clamps to kind of get a little bit flush and then screw your pocket holes in there. Otherwise the pieces will shift and it won't be level or flush like you want. So I ran out of clamps and then had to end up using just some weights to put some extra pressure to hold that glue together. So here's all the pieces glued up, and here pocket hole screws, I did make a mistake and drilled on the wrong side, so we used some plugs, which these are paint gray plugs, but they work just fine. You could barely tell when it was all said and done. What in the world? So you can tell this is kind of, I didn't realize this one was still in here, but there's plenty of this kind of footage that I had to trash, and apparently I missed this one, so bear with me. Anyway, once it's done, you can see this is what the plugs look like. Once the stain's on there, you can't even notice. I actually couldn't figure out which one it was. But when you're doing your pocket holes, make sure you leave room for all of these. So when you offset it, what I've learned in the past of, if you do all the pocket hole screws the wrong way, then you kind of block yourself, or you're not able to get to them. So this is what the rail will look like once it's mounted up. It'll make sense later, but again, it is solid. So not only did I get help for gluing, I got help for staining and putting on polyurethane. So anytime I don't have to paint or stain, I'm excited. So I was happy to have a volunteer, which I don't know if it's really much of a volunteer, more than me begging, but either way, I got help and it was well appreciated and great. So when that was finished, we put on 2 coats of polyurethane. Here the footage got botched. I love my time lapse of putting on polyurethane, but the GoPro didn't cooperate, so I had to compromise and go with me showing you what it looks like when you sand it after the polyurethane in between coats. So it always terrifies me. I get nervous every time I lightly sand in between because it leaves this cloudy film on it, which you can wipe off most, but I'm going to show you a close-up video here. It has this just dull and white cloudy look to it, and I'm always scared that it's not going to disappear when I put the next layer of polyurethane on there, but it did. So here, this is a cap for the top of the headboard, so that way you don't get splinters if you run your hand across the top. It's a good idea to not do like I did and drop your glued up edge on your freshly polyurethaned finish, but it's alright. And I made sure I put painter's tape on my clamps this time to not leave a mark. So I ended up using all the bar clamps that I had, which was very helpful. And then here, these spacers on the bottom, if I had to do it over, I would probably use 2 high versus just 1, so that way the headboard's a little bit more offset on the legs. And then if I have really long clamps, which I do not, I would have used those to hold that in place instead of just forcing it against my belly to get them screwed in. So it didn't move too much. It moved a little bit, but it's serviceable. It'll serve its purpose. Here, got it all done up, and certainly don't put it together if you're trying to carry it up a bunch of stairs by yourself or even with one person. So I didn't put it all together until I got up in this room. So here, the one part I did mess up is one of the 2x4s, which you use for the top of the footboard, you need to not leave at the 2x6 measurement. So here, I realized after the fact, so that's what I'm doing, is cutting off the excess I should have cut off early on, which, as you can see, I lost one of my pocket hole screws. But here it is, all assembled. A real quick video with